All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining this session. We got a pretty awesome session. It's going to kick off a three-part series on wholesaling real estate. It's probably not what you're going to think as we go through here. We're really going to break this business down. For those of you just getting started, for those of you that have done maybe less than 20 deals, or those of you that have been in the business, these executable steps and this workflow that I'm going to teach you with wholesaling is going to make a world of difference. So we're going to get started here in about 20 seconds. If you want to grab something to drink, a pen and paper, take a lot of notes, we'll get started here in just a few. All right. Well, I want to first thank everybody for taking the time out of your day to join us on this awesome three-part training series on wholesaling. And, it's one of the main strategies there is in real estate. And to me, there's only 5 real estate strategies. I know you could go to a seminar and they could probably say there's several hundred, but there's foundational strategies, which this would be one of them. It's going to be pretty awesome. And I'm also joined here this evening with an awesome friend and business partner of our REI Pro and local investing company, Bo Mannery, which I'm going to bring in just a second. But the key here is really executable steps. And I really want you guys to focus on what I'm going to teach you is, when I got started, I wanted to know the ifs, ands, whys, buts about everything and how do I do it? What specific order can we do it in, and so forth. And these steps took forever to put on paper. But if we really follow these executable steps, you're going to finally connect the dots. And I couldn't tell you how many people I've heard, everybody wants to be in real estate. And you go back, well, how many deals have you done? Well, I'm still working on my first deal. I haven't done a deal. Well, how come? And it's usually because we don't know how to connect the dots. So that's what this 3-part training session is all about, is connecting those dots. And I know some of you may be frustrated out there with maybe kind of being misled or some, wanting you to buy something, high-pitched sales seminar, whatever it may be, and they kind of leave out different pieces. Well, what I found out is, honestly, a lot of people can't teach it. It's easy to sell something, but it's very difficult to teach it. And that's what we're going to do here in this 3-part series. So tonight is part 1, and then next Tuesday we'll be doing part 2, and then that following Wednesday will be part 3. We'll send out information so you can register for that as well. So keep in mind, these are the 10 steps. Tonight we're going to be talking about steps 1 through 3. Lead generation and finding deals is really ultimately the most important step out of all of these steps, because without that, the other steps really just don't matter. So we'll get started here. If you haven't been to my website, reiandme.com, you can download one of my best-selling books here. I was actually nominated as one of the top 30 entrepreneurs, and you could get the digital version here. It's also on Amazon. If you do go to Amazon, we would appreciate that. We do donate all proceeds to a children's charity organization. And so it goes to a great cause at the same time. I love this quote here by Warren Buffett. I'm pretty sure most of you know this person. And he's got some pretty harsh quotes if you actually ever seen his quotes. I will tell you how to become rich. Close the doors. Be fearful when others are greedy. Be greedy when others are fearful. It's such a great quote, and I know there's many of them out there, but you have to go after it. You can't sit back thinking that it's something's going to happen or a duplex is going to show up in your driveway. You have to go get it, and don't be scared. That's what people do when the economy goes down. Everybody worries, they get scared, they start playing it safe, and that's really not going to build any kind of wealth whatsoever. So my name is Chris Goff. Now we'll get to who we are. Founder of REI and Me, also co-founder of our REI Pro Investor Software and co-founder of our Group 360. It's our local real estate investing group here in Peachtree City, Georgia, which is just a beautiful place if you've never been here. Husband, father of 3, actually grew up in Northern Virginia, and that's where I got started. And my dream job as a kid was to work on airplanes. And I remember when I was 12 years old, that's all I wanted to do is just work on airplanes. And I went to school, did all the right things, landed my dream job, and started working as an aircraft mechanic. And it took, about a year. I realized, although that was my dream job as a kid, that was not my dream salary as an adult. And that's where real estate investing, I can't remember if it was a TV show or a commercial, but it was a Carlton Sheets, and I had bought the program. And I was totally confused when I went through it. I didn't know where to go. I didn't understand what he was talking about, but it was just something I believed in my heart. When you get in this business, you have to be passionate about helping other people. You can't look at it from a financial gain. And I've been doing it since 1999, so quite a few years. Really specialize in the creative real estate side of it. Although, specialize in 5 strategies. Creative real estate investing is really kind of that niche business that not many people really understand. 2-time best-selling author, coach, mentor. I'm a national real estate marketing expert. I think, marketing is about 50% of your business. And I see so many, and I'm going to hopefully steer you in the right direction with these next 3 training sessions, that the cheesy, sleazy marketing is really outdated. And what we need to do is come across way more professional. I mean, you have to think about it. When you're driving around, do you see those handwritten "We Buy House" signs, right? I mean, you got to think of what a seller says. Chris, if you can't afford a sign, how are you going to buy my house? Now, some of you on here are probably saying, hey, Chris, it works like a charm. Hey, if it works for you, keep going. But what are you comparing it to? We were always taught years ago, you should always compare your business to people that are doing better than you. And we have to continually improve and get better with our marketing. One of the really big, awesome things that I've done in my life is been associated with Brian Tracy. Many of you may know who Brian Tracy is, and got to be on one of his TV shows where he actually interviewed me. Here, I bought his book years ago, and now he's interviewing me. It was definitely a highlight and a blessing in my life to have that opportunity. There's the best-selling book there, actually award in Hollywood there in the middle picture with Miss Oregon interviewing me. And then a picture of me and my wife, and a very famous author named Jack Canfield wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. There's me and Brian. It's the first time I ever wore makeup. And I tell you, that was the weirdest thing. I did not feel comfortable doing this. But it was an awesome opportunity to be able to meet Brian and do this. And then co-wrote a book with Brian that you can buy on Amazon right now. Like I said before, all of our books, we donate all proceeds to a very awesome cause. So I would encourage you guys to purchase the book on Amazon.com and help a bunch of kids out at the same time. And most recently, pretty awesome thing that came our way this year, a 4-time Emmy Award-winning director just came into Peachtree City, Georgia to film a documentary on Bo and myself on how we came together and developed this awesome software. And the movie date releases sometime this summer. We're going to keep everybody posted when that comes out. But that was a pretty awesome experience, and look forward to seeing how that turns out. I'm also joined by co-founder REI Pro, Mr. Bo Manry. Say hello, Mr. Manry.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Good evening, everybody. As Chris said, I am one of the co-founders of the REI Pro software, as well as our local real estate group 360. And yes, we actually do deals. We do deals in every strategy that we teach, and we love to do it, but also to teach it. I went to school at Auburn University, where really early on I wanted to be an engineer. And as I was going through school and I worked as an engineer for a brief period, I realized, I really just don't want to be an engineer. And so, my father, my grandfather were both business entrepreneurs, and I think that's what was really in my heart. So, as an undergraduate in 1997, right around the time of graduation, I started my first company, and it was an online company in the software space. And I just continued down that path. I just really wanted to be a business owner. Since then, I have started multiple companies, several that I own still to this day. 2007, I did get into real estate investing, and I've been doing that ever since. Most recently, I was able to have the privilege of co-authoring a book with Brian Tracy as well. That was a unique experience, and that was a great opportunity. And since I have a lot of online companies, well, I had to learn how to generate traffic and go out and acquire my customers. So it's been, a long road and a great education, but I have become very proficient in online marketing strategies. I am a Google AdWords certified specialist, and I like to bring some of that stuff to the table here with our software and our local investment company. So, tonight's a really good topic on wholesaling, part 1. So get ready to take a lot of notes. I know Chris doesn't hold anything back from these webinars, and you're going to really get a lot of information. So let's just get started and get to it.
Yeah, thanks, Bo. And it's funny listening to you, going through kind of your bio and some bullet points. And obviously, we want people to understand who they're going to be listening to for the next hour or so. Is we just don't have that sad story that the typical guys out there like to say in a seminar with 100 people in there. I grew up in my truck, and I ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and
Divorced
we don't have that
times.
sad story, but that doesn't, excuse the fact that we haven't put in so much hard work, and we've made so many mistakes along the way. And I think that's where, you start to learn who you are, and you become a better person. And I love real estate for that.
Heck, I started companies that failed. But I like to say that, it's that stick-it-to-ism that gets you through. That's the difference between, making it and not making it sometimes is sticking with it.
That's right. That's the key. So we're going to be doing a 3-part series. Tonight we're going to talk about steps 1 through 3. Part 2 is going to be next Tuesday. I'll give you some information here at the end, how you can register for all that good stuff. And put your guard down. We're not selling anything. We're not even offering a wholesaling home study course. Okay, so put your guard down. It's 100% education, just like I put in the email. For those of you that got the email, this is a no BS training session. You're going to get a ton of information out of this. We'll do part 3 following next Tuesday, which will be on a Wednesday. So we're going to go back-to-back days on this. And then we're going to put all the replays back inside of REI Pro under the Education Center, because I know most people on here have REI Pro already. So, all right, so just some fundamentals here. I want you to understand that it's not just about wholesaling. And I know when you guys go to a seminar, somebody tries to sell you on one strategy. And my viewpoint is you need to understand multiple strategies. I want you to have the tools so when you walk in a seller's house and they say, hey, Chris, I'm in this situation, you use the strategy as the tool to solve the problem. And sometimes it could be multiple strategies, which we'll talk about, in other presentations about how we like to present multiple offers versus a one offer fits all approach. There's also that fix and flip business. You guys have seen the TV shows out there. One of my favorite businesses is the lease options. I think it's a very niche business, but it's a business that if I were to stand in front of a room with 100 people, I bet 99% of the people in there would understand, hey, have you ever heard of this term? And then when I go back and say how many people have actually done one, you can see about 98% of the hands go down. So it's a very niche business. I love that one, and seller financing as well. Anybody that is interested in working, like the pre-foreclosure business, you have to understand this strategy. This is the foundation of how we maneuver through a pre-foreclosure and other strategy or other situations as well. So we really need to understand these particular strategies. And the last one, what we call a straight option, which is very similar to wholesaling, except you work with nice houses, nice neighborhoods, and you don't have to lowball anybody. So this training series is all going to be on wholesaling. But before I can actually teach you a strategy, I've never seen anybody ever teach this, Bo. This one part to me is so important to understand before you even talk about a strategy, because I see so many people, they get confused on, oh, I'm not sure what strategy is that, or how do I do that? I don't even know how to look at something like this. And I know when I teach this in a live workshop, this really sets up every strategy, this one part. Now, I know we don't have a ton of time to talk about it, but what I want you guys to understand is that how do we buy property? And the ways that you can do that, forget about strategy for a second, is if you pay all cash, you have to pay at a discount. And what that means is not dollar bills out of your bank account. What I mean by that is that you're going to pay the seller in one lump sum. Okay, so they're going to be done, you move on. The second way to do that is what we call terms. I'm going to buy the property on terms. So how much down, how much a month, and how long can I do it for? So that's terms. And most people buy things on terms right now. Think about the house that you live in. You probably have a mortgage on it. You put down a down payment, you make monthly payments, and then in 30 years, you'll actually pay it off. Now, it's funny to me because people know that you're going to pay about 3 times the amount of the house, but we still do it anyways.
Every day.
We still pay more for it because we need the house. We can't afford to pay cash or in one lump sum. The most ideal is to get both discount and terms. So when we find potential maybe rehab project, instead of going to the bank or hard money lender or a private investor, maybe the seller could take payments for a short period of time to allow myself to fix up the property and turn around and sell it and cash everyone out. I don't think a lot of people think of that, but these are the 3 ways. So before I even think of strategy, I have to ask myself, Chris, does the seller need all cash up front? Would they be open to taking terms, or could they potentially take a discount on price and make payments on it? And I have to think about this because we're always told if the seller picks the price, you pick the terms. If the seller picks the terms, you pick the price. If the seller picks the terms and the price, put them in a 30-day file because there's only one thing that's going to change their mind: time. People's circumstances change in time. Okay, so I want you guys to really make a note of this because this is going to help us determine what strategy we're actually going to be working. So, we talk about, Bo, that, real estate is really about timing and motivation. Mm-hmm. Now, especially is that for this particular strategy. I wouldn't necessarily say that for some of the other strategies, but wholesaling, they have to be able to take a cash at a discount. And they want to get paid in one lump sum because now I'm looking for a retailer and to cash everyone else. So this is even more important, these 3 financing techniques that you understand. Wholesaling is going to be cash at a discount. We're going to pay the seller off, not necessarily your money, but somebody else's money. We're going to show you how to do that in these 3 training sessions. But understand that I need to pay cash at a discount. That's what wholesaling is versus terms where maybe the seller would be open to a small down payment, monthly payment, and they were willing to do this for 3 years. That might turn into maybe a seller finance or a lease option, which would be a different strategy. So wholesaling is cash at a discount. But there's one thing you have to know, and this is the part that people truly don't understand. It's not about that they don't understand what a lease option or wholesaling or whatever strategy it is. What I found out that people they don't know how to connect the dots. It's understanding how to put the pieces together. What do you do first? And I hear people, they say, hey, Chris, I've done this and this, but now what? And they don't understand. So they go try to research it and then they get more confused because now everybody's telling them something different. This one thing is truly going to change the way you view real estate, period, no matter what strategy we talk about. And that's what I call the executable steps. It's the physical things you have to do in a specific order to make something happen. It's not about, I think, people are smart out there, Bo. You get what the theory is behind it, but how do you put it into action?
Well, that's actually half the problem because even though we call it executable steps, that first word, executable or execute, you actually do have to get off the couch and do something. I was at a meetup club not too long ago, and, every time I go to the meetup club, I meet this same gentleman, and I asked him how he's doing. He said, man, I'm still working on that first deal. I've met
first one.
The first.
Every time.
4 years now in a row. So the executable steps does require you to execute something and get off the couch and go do it.
Yeah, this isn't a business to just get all pumped up and excited. You really do need to understand the action steps. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this 3-part training series. So every business has a wholesale retail side. So a wholesaler is someone that sells goods in bulk, large quantities to retail at cheap prices. Retailers then sell it at what we call retail price. So a wholesaler comes in and really grabs a property at a low discounted price and then passes that on to what we call a retailer that goes in and fixes up the property and then sells it at a retail price. And this is basic business practice for almost every kind of business. There's usually a wholesaler and a retailer. So what is the definition? And this is my definition of what wholesaling is. So this is about locating properties, usually needing repairs. And I say usually needing repairs because that's when you generally get a better price. So at bargain price, passing them quickly to investors or landlords at prices well below market, not necessarily what it's worth in its current shape, but what the potential ARV would be worth. So unless you have access to large credit line partners, real cash cannot buy a lot of properties. So the best way to do it is to tie a property up under contract to buy and then assign or sell that contract to somebody that wants to buy the house, fix it up, resell it, rent it, whatever they want to do. That's where wholesaling really comes in, and that's my definition. So it's a buy low, sell low, and you're going to make a profit in between there from what you put it under contract for to what you're selling it for to a new investor. Well, what makes this legal? Because I did 46 of these my very first year, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I mean, I got to the point where I'm like, I don't even know if this is legal. So, what makes it legal? And those of you that have been to maybe an event or other trainings, it's what we call equitable interest. And what that means is anytime you sign a contract to buy, that gives you equitable interest, which means that you can assign or sell that interest as long as it says you can't. So every real estate contract in the world, as far as real estate, is considered an option contract. In an option contract, you have the right to assign or sell that interest. Now, I know a lot of realtor contracts are going to say you can't do that. So unless it specifically says you can't, you can. And that's what makes it legal. And it's, it's kind of a weird business when you think about, are you saying that I can actually make money in real estate without actually ever owning the house? And that is absolutely true, because you're not even selling the house. You're selling the piece of paper.
Well, I mean, banks do it every day.
Yeah, it's funny. You sign up with Wells Fargo for a mortgage, and then a couple months later, you get a letter in the mail from Chase that says, start making your payments to Chase. And what Wells Fargo did is they signed you up and then sold your loan to another bank for a fee. That's how they make money too. It's the exact same thing we do in real estate. And it's called equitable interest. I'll give you maybe a good example, especially for people that are just getting started in real estate. If I go down to the BMW car dealership and I want to buy an M6, right, Bo?
Yep.
Since you were talking about it today. And I get financing through BMW Financial. Can I legally drive the car off the lot after I sign the papers that give me the keys?
Of course.
Yes. Could I run it into a tree? Yes. Could I change the stereo out? Mm-hmm. Yes. And my question is, how can you do all those things if you don't have legal title to the car? You have what's called equitable title or equitable interest. It's the exact same thing in real estate, and that's how we make money ultimately in wholesaling. So why wholesaling? I mean, why should we do this? I mean,
Well, probably because most people are told to do it.
Yeah, this is the way you get into real estate, right? This is how I got it. And from being an educator for so many years, I can tell you it's one of the strategies that's probably the easiest to learn. And although I didn't have a clue what I was doing, I just knew fundamental pieces and eventually packaged it all together and figured it out. Today is a different world than when I got started, but it's simple to learn. So people get in. No money required. Obviously very attractive there. I didn't have any money when I got started. So I know how it feels when you don't have money. How do you make money in real estate if you don't have money, right? And then no credit required because you're not actually applying for a loan. You're not going down to the bank, please, please, Mr. Bank, give me a loan. You don't need that because you're not ever taking title to the property in wholesaling, which is nice, very attractive for people. And obviously it makes extra income for you. So very simple. If you look at this graph, so you find a motivated seller, you have a contract to purchase with the seller, and then either an assignment of contract or what we'll call a double close, which we're going to talk about in the future trainings. We're basically passing or selling the contract. We're not selling the house. We're putting the house under contract to buy, and then we're selling that contract to a new investor that wants to come in, cash the seller out, pay us a fee for doing that, and then they can go and fix it up, rent it out, whatever they want to do with it. Now, what makes wholesaling difficult, and a lot of people probably, wouldn't think of these things. Well, one thing you have to understand is that this is a very low percentage of properties in the U.S. I mean, it's probably, I'm guessing around 5%. And I've been in a lot of markets here. But to find distressed properties with a distressed situation for wholesaling, it's a very low percentage. So if you don't understand what to do, it's going to be very difficult for you. And again, this training session, this 3-part is going to be, someone's golden ticket, because nobody teaches it this way, period. What about competition, Bo?
Well, most people that I meet typically are saying I'm wholesaling or are interested in wholesaling. I'd actually say 98% of the people say I'm wholesaling. So that's a very large percentage of people wholesaling.
So you have a limited amount of properties to work. You have high competition. And when people get into this business, they think, hey, I'll just get into wholesaling because that's what Dan Merrill said to do. It's going to be one of those. If you don't understand how to maneuver through this, it could be very difficult.
Or they're trying to do it because of no money, no credit.
Yeah, competition. You're trying to compete against people like me in the marketplace. I already know how to do it. And that makes it difficult. And that's why we want to teach you guys how to do it the right way in a very specific order that just makes sense. Old school methods, wholesaling and all strategies have been around for years. These strategies have never changed. I know when we go to the seminar, it's like, oh, here's a new strategy. Well, it's not new. There's nothing new about this.
I thought you made all this up.
Yeah, just read it out of a book and put it on a PowerPoint slide. And really understanding how to connect the dots. And that's what this presentation is really about. The next, this one and the next two is, I want to arm you guys with the proper knowledge in a very specific way, because if you understand these steps in a specific order, number one, you're going to find those deals, you're going to eliminate the competition, and you're going to end up closing deals and understand how to connect the dots. And that is really the true key. And this has nothing to do with how smart you are. I see so many people as like, well, I'm pretty smart, I can figure it out. No, you either have the information or you don't. Now, people all the time, they go online, find, everything for free. And it's not about that. We talked about in our last training session, that conversation you have with Brian Tracy, that, if he gives you his telephone number to do consulting with and you write down the wrong number, you're never going to get a hold of him. Doesn't matter if you're a good person, you have a big heart, you go to church on Sundays. It doesn't matter. You have the wrong phone number. It's the same thing in this business. I want to arm you guys. I want you guys to have the edge and the advantage here. And I want to kind of, before we get into the details, I want to talk about this one deal. I say one deal, but there's 18 houses that I did all on one contract. And I was driving by, and I love driving neighborhoods, not just to find kind of those hidden treasures that I call them, is to really understand the marketplace that I'm in and understanding what prices are in certain areas or subdivisions and rent values. So it's very educational to get out and explore your area. I always say start in your backyard. People ask me all the time, where's the best place to invest in real estate? And I always say the same answer: wherever there's houses. It's not about the house. It's about the owner's situation that determines the deal, not the house. The house is just standing there. So I found this house. It was one of these houses here is the top left, and it was actually for rent. And I called the owner and I said, hi, my name is Chris. Was calling about the house on 123 Ash Street. It appeared to be vacant. I was wondering if you would be interested in selling. And the gentleman on the other line said, actually, I want to sell everything I own. I said, well, what do you own? He said, I have 18 houses. I said, cha-ching. I mean, that's what I'm saying. So I got all the addresses, and only 2 of the properties were actually rented. Everything else was vacant. They were distressed. Some were in a really bad area. I mean, there was a house I didn't even go in. It was so bad. And so I was a little nervous about it. Here, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. And here, this guy wants to sell me 18 properties. I didn't really understand how to evaluate the properties. I'm just like, well, that's broke. About how much does that cost? I'm trying to figure out what it's worth. And I came up with a price for $130,000 for all 18. Now, keep in mind, this is in Texas. If anyone's ever familiar with Waco, Texas, this is where this is. And I remember calling the gentleman, and he was an older gentleman. It was very difficult for me to actually make the offer. $130,000, because you have no idea how someone's going to react. But the good thing is he was on the other line, so it wasn't like he could do anything, right? But hang up on me. And I offered $130,000. He said, let me tell you what, son, why don't you come to my house and we'll talk about it? I'm like, okay, no problem. So
now he's going to shoot you.
Yeah. So I wasn't even thinking that. So here I head back up to Waco. And of course, the whole time I'm freaking out, like, oh my gosh, what's this guy going to do? And I walk in, and he's showing me pictures of his grandkids. And he was telling me he's worked his entire life to acquire 18 houses. And he went to the doctor, and his doctor said, you need to get out of the business or you're going to be out of business. He had some heart issues, and he needed to let go of these properties. We were in his house for about an hour. He asked me if I wanted tea, and we're just talking about just family. And finally, the gentleman stood up and he looked at me and he pointed and he said, Chris, I'll take the deal. And I realized that he had worked his entire life to acquire 18 houses. He just didn't want it to give it away to anyone. He had a lot of pride and sweat into these properties. And here I just put under contract to buy 18 houses for $130,000, and now I'm freaking out because I have no idea how to get rid of these things. I didn't even know who would buy it, so I called an investor, a friend of mine that bought other properties from me, and I said, hey, would you be interested in these properties? And he said, yeah, let's go look at them. So we took a trip back up to Waco and looked at all of them. And the investor said, how much do you want for them? I'm like, I don't really care. I just want to get rid of the house. And now I feel bad because here, this owner, he had worked his whole life to acquire 18 properties. I just want to make sure the deal went through. And the investor looked at me and said, I'll give you $1,000 per house. I said, done deal. 18 grand, no problem. So I put the house under contract, and then what we're going to talk about in the next training session is how I signed that contract over and how I got paid for that. So that's in a nutshell. Wholesaling is very simple as long as you know what to do. I remember doing a workshop, Bo, real quick, that I was teaching wholesaling for an entire day. And a gentleman after class, he came to me and said, Chris, if it's this simple, why isn't everybody doing it? I said, it is simple and not everyone's doing it, just like you weren't doing it before you walked in these doors to learn how to do it. You have to understand these steps to do it right. And I'm not talking just about residential. You can wholesale commercial. I mean, there's investors out there saying you can wholesale a pre-foreclosure, you can wholesale a short sale, you can wholesale just about anything. Okay, here's the actual commercial property that we wholesaled. Remember, no money, no credit. We simply put a house under contract, assigned it to a new investor, made $32,000 on that. Pretty awesome. All right, so step one of the 10 steps is lead generation. And I preach this. This one step you have to get really good at. This is the one step that I think most beginners come in and say, oh, I don't think finding the deals is hard. I think finding the buyers is hard. Now, there may be specific areas where leads just come to you, but in general, teaching this from across the country, this is really the first step. And, finding deals isn't just driving around like I'd mentioned. It's really understanding the motivation to sell. Just some signs of obviously vacant homes. I look at that as someone's probably paying a mortgage or they're at least paying taxes. Somebody could vandalize the property. Somebody could go on the property, get hurt on the property. It's a vacant home. This could cost a lot of money. Maybe the owner can't afford to fix up the property. Should be a sign of motivation here. Maybe tenant problems. We actually just did a house like that. Divorce, health, rundown property, somebody that's getting a job transfer. They just need to, cash out real quick, lost a job, out-of-state owner, inherited property. There's a lot of signs of motivation, but your job as a real estate investor is to understand where that motivation is. Now, most of the wholesale deals that I've personally done, which has been several hundred, normally I would say today that online, is just the general way to do lead generation, but wholesaling to me is really about finding those hidden gems. These are properties that are not advertised. They're not online. They don't have a for sale sign. And these properties you're going to have to go drive for. Okay.
That's how we found that one deal.
Yeah.
Drive by.
The last two deals actually.
Yeah.
Were drive by. So I love driving around to the point of, I want to understand my marketplace. It's like finding the next treasure. That's how I looked at it. And people ask me, well, how long do you drive until I find a deal? That's how long I drive, But no, when I got started doing this, because I would drive at least 3 hours a day, but I was doing it full time. I had quit my job and doing it full time. Some signs of, broken windows, tall grass, overflowing mail, no curtains, trash cans not out when everyone else is. You could always ask postal workers where the vacant properties are. But there's sometimes those small things that you need to pay attention to, such as there's no hose. There's no of those personal items that you would normally see outside of a house. Maybe the yard is mowed, but it's vacant. Mentorship training will always find houses every single time. And there was this one, I remember there was a car in the driveway. We drive by and I looked at my student. I said, let's write that one down. It's vacant. He said, Chris, there's a car in the driveway. I said, yeah, but it's got expired tags. Most likely it's vacant. People park cars in the driveway so people don't think it's vacant. Yeah. Or the neighbor parks in the driveway so you don't think it's vacant. Okay, so look for all of those different signs when you're driving and really pay attention to this. I always got a little voice recorder, and as I'm driving, I would just record that address inside the voice recorder. So when I got back, I just play those out and I could do my own research, which I'm going to show you how to research these properties here in a minute. But generally speaking, you're looking for distressed homes, vacant properties. These are the properties that we are going to get a cash discount on. When I walk in a property, I want to smell, cat urine, because that is just the smell of money every time I walk in there, right? And think about the homeowner. They have a distressed property here. They probably need the money. They don't have the money to fix it. It's just sitting there. It's abandoned. It's depreciating the area. It's like an attraction for vandalism. It's really not doing anybody any good, and people could get hurt. It's really our job to get in there and find these properties and do something with them. But sometimes, like this property to the left, a lot of you that have been following me really rarely show this picture. I don't know why, but a lot of you know one of my students, Rex Kress, 71 years old, did 20 deals his first year, 660 grand. This was actually one of the houses that we found. So we're driving by, and I said, Rex, stop the car. So he stops the car. I get out and I take a picture real quick. And I knew this house was vacant because I don't know if you could see it in the picture, but do you see all the buzzards over the house. There's actually one sitting on the house to the top left. And I walked around, there was a dead deer in the backyard. Okay. If you actually lived there, I would assume that would have been taken care of, right? So this ended up being one of the deals, which is pretty awesome. And then this property here was kind of exciting to the right. This old bus turned into a house. It's even got a DirecTV satellite dish on the side here, you know? So it's like this, you know, this is in San Diego, by the way. And so I said, oh, stop the car. I want to take a picture of this because I think it's vacant. Soon as I take the picture, you can see the door open to the RV bus there. It's like, oh, not vacant, get in, you know, take off. And then this one, most recently, this is in Houston. I mean, that's awful. I mean, that sticks out like a sore thumb, expired tag. So anyways, there's a lot of ways that you can find these deals, such as bird dogs. You know, to me, a wholesaler is a bird dog, right? So a bird dog can then have other bird dogs find properties for them so they can pass along to investors. Word of mouth, real estate agents, online marketing, social media. There's a lot of different ways to find deals. I'm going to help you shortcut this with one of our lead generation pieces of REI Pro. Inside here is called Lead Pro. You're going to be able to find all kinds of properties, millions of leads right inside REI Pro. I'm going to get, and actually, once I teach you wholesaling, I'm going to actually walk through the steps inside the software because we have to research information. This all sounds good, but how do you really put it into play now? And that's where we're going to get in. And then step two, once we find a deal, we need to contact the owner. We could do that in two ways. You can contact them by phone or you can contact them by mail. That's direct mail, a letter or a postcard, something of that nature. But I want to do some basic research. Number one, I need to understand, is it even vacant? So when I go to the tax assessor or go inside of REI Pro, I want to understand, is the address different from the owner's billing address, meaning that they don't receive their tax bill there, which tells me it could be potentially vacant or maybe it's rented. So that's my first sign of understanding, is it a vacant property? And then, of course, understanding some of the other numbers to that. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then I'm going to call them. I'm going to research their number and I'm going to call them. And I want to ask very specific questions here to understand their motivation, because the motivation, their situation dictates what the strategy is. I couldn't tell you how that one thing is so important. I see you go to an event or something and people say, you need to do wholesaling. Here's 30 testimonials, get going. It has nothing to do with wholesaling. It has everything to do with the situation, how we apply the strategy to that situation. And then last but not least, if you can't get a hold of the owner, either by phone or you don't get a response by direct mail, create a follow-up system and follow up with those people. I'm here to tell you, you'll do, even if you only do one more deal a year because you followed up, it was well worth it. And that's really the key. So just some pointers when you talk to people on the phone, be sure to ask the right questions. You know, this is probably one of the more, I would say, difficult parts. I know lead generation is important. I would say this is probably one of the more difficult parts in all the steps, is really understanding, how do you build a relationship with people? How do you explain what you're doing? How do you come across? What questions do you ask? And that's where REI Pro really comes into play here, because this is going to really literally walk you through everything, because we outlined every question you should ask from the initial phone script. This is what you say. I still say it today. My students say it. All of our users say it. I mean, you got to stick to it. You'll craft your own way of doing it, your demeanor and how you come across, you know, but you got to come across with confidence. I see a lot of people, they're scared of the phone. It's just the way it is. Separate issues from personal feelings. No, it's negotiating, not life or death. You know, I remember the very first phone call I made, this lady cussed me out. And that was the last phone call I ever got like that. It was my worst call, and it was my first call. Keep the momentum of negotiating going. Always follow up. Don't assume. And, and people ask, what other books and material would you recommend? And this is one that I always become a better communicator. Become really good at talking with people. And if you're working with like a partner or spouse, find out who talks better on the phone. Usually it's a female that does better at this part. And I always like to have the female call anyways, because generally speaking, you talk to the male of the property, and it's very difficult for the male to say no to the female. And the male will say no to a male all day long, right? But always make a great first impression, no matter if it's on the phone, at the property. Be on time if you schedule an appointment. Be yourself, be at ease. Your appearance. It's not if you're ugly, you just can't do this business. It's all about dress the part where you live. If I'm in New York or Manhattan, I'll probably wear a suit and tie. If I'm in Peachtree City, Georgia, I'm wearing a polo shirt and golf shorts. You dress the part and always have a winning smile. You look more approachable when you smile. You look more trustworthy when you smile. Keep that in the back of your mind when you're talking with people. Just smile. And when we were doing the Brian Tracy show, just a tip they gave me for being on video, they said you have to smile through your eyes. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? How do you smile through your eyes? Be positive, be courteous. Some common sense stuff there. And these are the 4 fears. And I know I show this slide in a live presentation. And I'll ask people, how many people are scared of the phone? You might have a few people raise their hand, but most people are like, I ain't scared. I can get on the phone. And I realize, you're probably not scared when you know what you're talking about, right? But when you don't know what you're talking about, it's a little scary, especially what if the seller asks me this question? I'm not going to know how to respond. So these are the 4 biggest fears that we found is fear of rejection. Look, nobody wants to be rejected, period. Is it going to happen? Yes. Okay. Fear of lack of knowledge. Don't be the person that says, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know anything, which is actually a sign of intelligence. But someday, you're going to have to put it in action. Don't think that you got to keep learning. You got to take action. Or when do you take action? You're never going to know. Yeah, you're not ever going to know everything anyways. And the biggest failure for most people is they never start.
Right.
So what about fear of messing up? Well, guess what? You will. I don't want you to make those financial mistakes. I want you to make the mistake. I should have asked this question, or I should have looked at it from this point of view. Those are the things I want you to mess up on, because you learn from those mistakes. And always has fear of making money, and everyone's like, oh, no, I'm scared of making money. But it's so true. If you've never made more than $100,000 a year, your perspective, your mindset would literally have to change 360 degrees. And I see it with real estate. Okay, so where do we start off? Let's start off with the $1 million homes. No. Let's start off with like the $150,000 home. I feel more comfortable there. Well, why? It's just a number. There's always that dollar sign that holds over people, and they never can really get over that hump. Obviously, real estate is going to be that vehicle for you to get over that hump, but you have to learn what to do. You can't be scared of making money. And then when we talk to them, it's all about information. It's gathering the information, asking the right questions. We take that information to determine, is this a deal that I even want to move to step 3 with, which would be property inspection. But before we do that, what I wanted to do, Bo, is throw in some Q&A. So I rarely ever do this.
Yeah, I've never seen
you actually seen me do this.
Definitely
before.
not on a webinar, so take notes.
What I want to do is take some of those more popular questions, and keep in mind, guys, that some of these questions will relate to the next 2 presentations, not just the initial. But question 1, what do you plan on doing with the property after you buy it? And that might sound like a weird question, but I've been asked that question a lot. I hope to make some money with it by selling or renting it. And the reason why I say renting is because most people think you either buy or rent, right? That's how we're brought up. If I said, well, I think I'm going to make some money with it, I'm going to sell or finance it and then sell the note off. They'd be like, what? They would have no idea. They don't even need to know what I'm doing. It's not a big deal. So keep it very short and general. And I always like to say, I hope to make some money. I'm not going to go, oh my gosh, I'm going to make a fortune off this property. And they're going to be, well, maybe it's too cheap. Are you the one that's actually going to buy my property? And how do you respond to that question? I say, either my company or another potential investor could buy it. I'm agreeing to what we have in our contract. I want to keep these very short, straight to the point answers. I think when people start to elaborate is when now they look wish-washy, okay? Are you really paying cash for my property? Mm-hmm. It'll be my money or the bank's money. Either way, it's cash to you. I mean, what is this subject to clause? Which you guys are going to understand what that is when we get into the next training session. And this is really a big question. You guys, you'll know this when we go over contracts. We're actually going to go through a real contract. Just like an inspection clause, just want to make sure that my financial partner approves so we can have a quick sale. It's not a big deal. And also look at the tone of how you say it too. It's a lot of it's in the the approach, how you say it, your demeanor when you say it, the confidence level when you say these things. How much money can you put down as earnest money? And I say as little as possible. I mean, because that's the truth, right?
Yeah.
I would like to use more of the bank's money since I'm the one that has to put a lot of money into your home. I hope you understand. So as soon as I go back and say, I got to put a lot of money into this property, I'm trying to steer the direction of them wanting a lot of money as earnest money. Obviously, they want to secure the deal. Why do you need 90 days to close? I'm only saying that I would like up to 90. I will close on your home as soon as possible. You never know. Sometimes the title company drags things on. Don't want to sign another agreement if the time were to elapse because of unexpected things that may come up. So your goal is not to wait till the 90th day. If I put 90 days, which you'll understand when we go through the contract, is that we want to close this as soon as possible. I want to make money as soon as possible. The seller wants to sell as soon as possible. We just need to put those two together. I've never sold a home before, and I'm not sure how much closing costs will be. Do you know? It's usually up to 3% of the purchase price. Very simple. Now, this is also could be used for negotiations where, oh, I don't know, 3%. That's where you could always come back and negotiate. Well, how about if I pay for the closing costs at this number? And depending on where you live, closing costs may not be all that expensive, unless you're in like California or something. All right, so then we move to step 3. So we found the property. We talked to the owner. They want to sell. We need to go look at this property. And this is what we call a property inspection. As we go through the property, we want to write down all the repairs that are needed. Anything that's off, any updating. We want to make note of all this so we can actually determine a total inspection cost. And one tip I wanted to give you here is, see the house on the left? This was a vacant property that I drove by. And as you can see, it's got tall grass and everything. And I get out of the car and I'm like, yeah, that property's vacant. So I researched, went back, found the owner of the house, and actually lived out of state. So I called the owner and I said, hi, my name is Chris. I was calling about a property on the street. It appeared to be vacant. Would you be interested in selling? She said, absolutely. And I said, well, I noticed you're in a different state. I would like to come see the property. Is there somebody here local that could show it to me? And she said, no, I'm sure the front door is wide open. I said, okay. So I'll just go right over there. So I get back over there in the tall grass, and it took me about 30 minutes to get to the front door because all I'm thinking of is snake. And here I am in tennis shoes and shorts. And I walk through the house. Of course, the utilities are off. The door was wide open. So it's really dark inside. And I get in and I see all these black trash bags. And I'm like, gosh, wait, it must be a hoarder or something like that. And I go through, and of course, curiosity sets in. Wonder what's in the black trash bags. And so I step over one of the bags, and I never make up these stories. I mean, this is just the way it is. You can't make this stuff up. And I go to open the trash bag, and of course you can't see because it's in a dark house and it's a black trash bag. So you get a little bit closer, and all this is happening in 0.05 seconds here, right? And I finally get a look, and it was dead chickens with their heads cut off. I about fell backwards. It took about 0.3 seconds to get back to the car. I wasn't worried about no snake. And I learned a very valuable lesson being here. Anytime you inspect a property, bring a flashlight. Something that simple, right? And then this house to the right is actually in Omaha, Nebraska. This is a closet in a bedroom. And as you can see, the gas meter and stuff there, and they actually had built a window and put crown molding over the window so the meter guy could actually read the meter. Now, obviously, this is not legal. This would cost a lot of money to get fixed. This could jeopardize the entire deal right here. Things to keep a lookout for. And when you walk into properties like this, again, remember, distressed, you got to ignore what the current condition is. You need to envision what it could look like. That's, you got to have that. And then, of course, one of the main things, we won't go into too much detail here, is cracks. And foundation is what everything's built on. And you either have a concrete slab, you have a pier beam. You need to understand how the foundation, and most common you would see, are cracks. Then we have what's called straight cracks, and then a staircase crack such as this. And of course, trees can cause cracks, but generally speaking, when there's a big tree beside a house, and I never knew this until a foundation guy told me this years ago, I've never forgot this, is that when you have a big tree beside a house that actually is growing towards the house, that could be a potential problem. If it's growing away from the house, it may not be a potential problem. But when I see cracks like this, a staircase crack, the problem is that every house shifts. Every house is going to get a crack. But a staircase crack is more dangerous because the house actually twisted. So if it twisted, the foundation not only cracked here, you need to check the entire foundation all the way around the house, period. Before we get into the software, I wanted to let you guys know about Wholesaling Part 2 is going to be May 24th, and then Wholesaling Part 3, 25th. It's going to be 8 o'clock Eastern time. Those of you, obviously, most of you have REI Pro. I'm going to go through REI Pro right now as far as how to research these properties, what numbers, and all that good stuff for wholesaling steps 1 through 3. But you can register right on your dashboard. Just go to real estate. You might as well register for both, because what's one, learning one is not going to do you any good if you don't hear the other two. And unfortunately, we can't put all 3 in one training session. So you can be able to register for that right on your dashboard. Now what I want to do is get into REI Pro. So how do we find the leads? What questions do we ask? How do we go through this process that we're talking about for wholesaling? Those of you, and I understand, look, a lot of you are already on REI Pro. Some of you are not. Those of you that are not, you need to be on it. It's go to myreipro.com. You can just sign up. It's a 30-day free trial. Everything is unlocked. There's no hidden fees, crazy cancellation stuff. Go test it out. Try it out, because this is going to be your new best friend, period.
Hands down.
Well, of course, right? Of course we would say that, right? But of course, I wouldn't put something out there that wasn't worth it. So let me get into REI Pro, and I'm going to show you where to find some of these leads, as well as what do we do with the leads now that we have them. So now that I'm up here this is our REI Pro dashboard. One of the, we talked about driving around, but there's a lot of other lead generation sources. You can't just rely on any one way to find deals. You should be working multiple ways on finding deals, and that's what we have, what's called Lead Pro. So when you go into Lead Pro, these are all national lists here, where you pull pre-foreclosures or auctions. I do want to clarify some, because we do have people that don't understand this part, and that's probably our fault. But people that, there are certain states when a house goes into pre-foreclosure, they actually schedule the auction date when they file that notice. If they schedule the auction date, such as Colorado or Virginia, those pre-foreclosures are actually going to be under the auctions tab. And then you have some states like Florida that have them in both. Okay, so it's one or the other or both. Okay, so just check both from bank code. But absentee owners is a really good place for you guys to start, because these are owners that don't live in the property. That means that they own property here, but they receive their tax bill and live somewhere else. So if I go in, I could go to absentee owners. Bo, I will just pull up Peachtree City. There's what, 42,000 people here? This is a small town, right?
Something like that.
I'm going to go in and just hit Peachtree City here, and I could really narrow this down from cities or multiple counties, cities, zip codes. I can go into price and say, just show me properties that have equity. Let's do that. We only want to see properties that have at minimum 20% equity.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and hit the search here. So just in this small town, there's over 1,281 potential leads right here. Now, we don't know what their situation is, but we won't know unless we communicate, and that's where we could send them maybe a professional postcard, send them a letter, and we have that information here. So lead generation is going to be much more simplified for you guys when you can go here and find not just pre-foreclosures, auctions, bank-owned, absentee owners, free and clear properties, high equity properties. You can get a nationwide list of cash buyers, investors, upside down properties where the mortgage potentially is upside down, and a national list of landlords. We do give some for sale by owner resources, those that are maybe just getting started. And then we tied into a national list for Craigslist as well. So a lot of lead generation tools and sources here. I went ahead and put in a property. So all the properties that you would manually enter in. So I do some driving today. I found 30 potential leads, and I'm going to type them in here and do some basic research. So just to kind of shortcut it, I went ahead and pulled a house in Peachtree City here, Bo, on Hickory Drive. Now, step one is what we call lead generation. Also, it's your due diligence. So when you come into REI Pro, not only are you going to get an REI Pro value of what we see it's potentially worth, it's kind of a quick number for you to look at for estimated values, which we take over a 30-day window. I'm going to see that, is it owner occupied? No, it's not. So that means it could potentially be vacant. They don't live there. I could also verify that information with the tax information tab, where I can see that they actually live in Peachtree City, but they live on Longer Drive. And I know that the property address is on Hickory Drive. So that's a great sign right there that, hey, this is potentially vacant. I need to reach out to these people and see if they'd be interested in selling. Some of the cool information that we can also pull are mortgage amounts. This will be extremely helpful for you guys, that if I know their mortgage amount in 2006 was 124, of course they probably owe less unless they refinance, maybe not re-recorded. But I know that I can't just go in there and offer them $20,000, because they're never going to be able to accept it because their mortgage is higher than that offer. So it wouldn't make sense. So I never had this information. This one screen right here is very valuable to me as an investor. I can go into the transaction history, see what's happened before. We also have comparable sales, which actually pulls straight from the courthouse. This is not a estimated comparable sales tab here. We can actually go in and find properties that are comparable, and every house that we have listed here comes straight through your recorder office in your county. So this is the sales document that was recorded. This is the most accurate number you could potentially find. And this includes any for sale by owners that sold.
Right. That's what I was about to say here. This isn't just MLS sales leads, because a lot of people are for sale by owners, or one investor to another, or anything that's going on. It's going to show up in here.
Yeah, and you can modify this criteria here. We're going to get more into comparable sales in the next training video on how we actually evaluate this property and give it a good value. And then you can also do a street view from here as well. I'll give you a good idea of, hey, I picked up 30 properties, but I don't remember this one. So this is going to be very helpful. You can learn a lot just by looking at this Google Maps, which I love. So we found the property, we do some due diligence. Now I have determined that this property, the owner does not live there. I know that it's either potentially vacant or maybe they're tired of renting it. I mean, you just don't know until you reach out. So we're going to move to step 2. All you got to do is just click on step 2. If you guys ever forget, there's a little instruction box here on every step. If you just stretch that out, it's going to teach you. One of the neat functions that we have in REI Pro is to be able to find people's phone numbers. We do have a free report here, which I'll go ahead and run. And we did find a phone number here on the free service, which is great, because if that number is still accurate, I don't have to go anywhere else. Because remember, this is a house that's not advertised. There's no phone number. We need to find the phone number. Otherwise, we would need to send direct mail. So if you can't find the phone number, we would send this to direct mail, which I'd show you. We also have a full skip trace phone report, which does unlisted numbers as well as cell phone numbers.
Previous addresses.
This is a pretty awesome report right here, and it's only $5. And people charge a fortune for this stuff. And then we also have a nearest relative search, where if you pull the skip trace report and it'll show if the owner is deceased or not.
Correct. Yeah.
You would need to reach out to possibly the son, the spouse, and that's where the nearest relative report would really come in handy. Here's the point. You have access to phone records right through REI Pro, and this is not some cheesy type of skip trace report. We have ran miles to make this stuff happen.
Yes.
This is very expensive to get, by the way. So once we find the phone number, you're going to click on this tab called Phone Scripts. And the first thing you want to do is you'll see this little drop down. And what happens is as you change it, this was a vacant lead, it's actually going to give you the phone script. Hi, my name is Chris Goff. I was calling about a property owned located at 108 Hickory Drive in Peachtree City. Appeared to be vacant. I was wondering if you'd be interested in selling it. Once I ask that question, it's usually a yes or no or a response, or I'm not really sure. I've been kind of thinking about it. Well, could you tell me a little bit about it? So we're going to go into the owner questions. So I'm going to ask these very specific questions. Now, one of the most important questions is this one right here. May I ask why you are selling? This is really going to determine their motivation. I'm tired of renting it out. I've got a job transfer. This is really going to help us identify, is this a deal or not, right here. And then you have more additional questions. It may turn into a lease option. You may think that you're going to do it on wholesaling, but it could turn into a lease option. We have those questions. You can schedule an appointment here for yourself, then kind of conversation notes. So we're going to ask very specific questions to really identify, is this a lead that I need to go look at? Once I do that, I will then move to step 3. Now, if you can't find the phone number from the phone search, you want to send direct mail. You would simply click the send direct mail, and then I'll just put new here. And then you can put a campaign type. I'll put vacant homes, and then I can create campaign and add property. We also have some letters down here that you can manually print off, or you can put them in, pull them up in a Word doc, and you can edit those as you want. You can also upload a custom letter that maybe you have a letter, for those of you that have been in the business, that works like a charm. You want to upload it into REI Pro just to simplify your life. You can do that as well. If I can go ahead and move this to a direct mail campaign, if I hit go to direct mail, you will also find this as one of our main buttons here, that I've now added one house here. And here from our direct mail, you can order professional postcards. You can do all kinds of stuff. Let me show them actually the postcards for a vacant lead. So we've already installed all these postcards free of charge for you. If you do use them through our in-house printing service, obviously we charge for printing and the postage, but we've already got all the, I'm going to go down to vacant homes real quick. I now have the opportunity to use one of these particular postcards, or you have the option to use a general postcard, which we have here at the top. You also can then upload maybe your own postcard in here as well. So we give you the capability of being able to do that. We do the in-house printing, we ship them out. There's a lot of cool things with that part of it. So let me go back to the property here. Under my properties, we have 108 So that's how you would do it from here. So if I can't find a phone number in wholesaling, I need to send direct mail. That could either be a letter or a postcard. We then move into step 3, which is property inspection. And this is where I'm going to enter in all the costs for my inspection form. We have a blank one here that you can manually take to the house. You can use REI Pro on any smartphone, tablet that you have internet access to. So you could also do it from one of those devices as well. And then you can print that report. You need to update this total. And then because we're going to use this total in step 4, which is how do we make an offer? We're going to be talking about that in the next training session. And I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not making offers, you're not making money. I mean, it's that simple.
Got to
make offers. You got to understand we're going to go through the contract side of it as well. And then step 6, the affidavit. I'm going to show you how to fill that out. That is actually installed on the software as well. What else, Bo?
Well, we just keep on going. We'll just go around into wholesale part 2. No.
Can't do that. But you know, some of the big things here is do your due diligence here, especially with step 1, is really understanding some of the number side of it. We're going to go into comparable sales in the next training video, which will be very huge for you guys to understand that. So obviously, if you're not an REI Pro user, go to myreipro.com, sign up for a 30-day free trial, because you're going to need this. You're going to, if you like us, if you understand that you have to know the executable steps, we put that in here for you. One of the cool things that we did is, as these squares go light gray, that means you're there, because you might stop here and you might be working on 30 or 40 leads. You come back to it, you know exactly where you left off, right, which is very nice. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say real quickly, I can see several of you have your hands raised in the webinar right now. I have opened up a question and answer session.
Yeah, well, let's just take some. Yeah,
if you've got a question, go ahead and type it in. Hopefully, we'll be able to get to everybody here. I'll go ahead and start and read one. First one was coming in from Ryan, and his question is: should we locate buyers before locating sellers rather than the reverse? That way we could have a prepared buyers list, maybe to make closing process quicker, easier, smoother on the wholesale end.
Yeah, if I had to put it in a very specific order of what you do first to the last things, you have to find the lead first. Does that mean you have to wait till you get to step 7 to find the buyer? No. Start finding your buyers now. If you go to right here in REI Pro, you just go to buyers right here and you'll see a list of buyers here. We'll just create a new buyer. Put an ad out in Craigslist, you know, for wholesaling. Hey, handyman specials, call me. I have a list. Something generic, right?
I've used my own property.
Use your own property as an example. And then when they call, sorry, that one's already gone, but I'm out finding more properties. Could I ask you some questions? And go from there. We have all the questions for your buyers right here. You're going to be more, investor specific questions for wholesaling would be right here. Once I save this information, I'm then going to have that right here at my fingertips. I'm going to have all my investors, all my buyers from lease option, seller financing. Everybody's going to be located in one central place.
Right. All right. Next question coming in from Sam. Would I be able to download or save to my PC a list of contacts that I have searched? And I assume by contacts, maybe you're actually referring to properties, the leads that you're accumulating. If that's what you're meaning, then yes. If you're putting them in a direct mail campaign,
go to direct mail,
and you're wanting to maybe do a letter on your own computer. If you're REI Pro, you can just print the letter right out of here. But either way, there is an export function, and it will export.
Yeah, you can export that, or what I would recommend is just install the letter on here. Click print letters. You can put your letter here, choose the letter that you have, and then hit generate letters. We automatically format it all right for you, and then you can just print every single letter off your own computer, but using REI Pro would be a little bit faster step. So yeah, you can actually export the leads though. We do give you that option too.
That is correct. Next question coming in from Rashawn. What's better, wholesaling or lease options?
Well, that's like asking who's your favorite child? You know what I mean? Yeah, it's you really can't answer that one. Now, I love both. I think lease options, and again, I'm not going to go in state specifics here because there's a couple states that it's very tricky. But lease options overall would be more of a niche business. It's one of my favorite businesses, but wholesaling is great too. I mean, I really can't pick. It's like saying this. I like this child over the other
Well,
one.
honestly, I mean, the way Chris teaches is the multiple strategies. And really, if you understand wholesaling, lease option, fix and flip, all of them, when you talk to a seller and you figure out what their situation is, you need to be ready to do any one of the strategies.
Yeah, that's what I teach. So yeah, but
we like
some
all
people need
of
to
them.
start somewhere.
Yeah.
But
okay, next question coming in from Ziska. Could you go over the REI Pro value, what it is exactly, and what is the difference between the value and the ARV?
good question.
Yeah, so the REI Pro value is updated on all properties across the U.S. every month. And it's accumulation of all the previous sales in the last 30 days. We take into account, light kind, property characteristics, does it have a pool, all of that stuff. So it is the values that are reran and readjusted based on the comps and stuff that's being sold. Now, as far as the difference between that and the ARV, again, ARV stands for after repaired value. So the after repaired value is what is this property worth in tip-top shape after we repair it?
Well, it's going to be more defined ARV when we go through the comps because the subdivisions change, things of that nature, where they could be just one street off, but the subdivision's different. So we can look at more very specific properties that are sold, which we're going to talk about in part 2, versus just a quick REI Pro value. We're kind of taking a big window of a radius, square footage and all that good stuff. There's a big calculation for that. But when you go in and select the comps, it could be more specific to subdivision, which would be even more fine-tuned.
Good way of putting it. All right, Rashawn, how many times should I mail the same property owner?
Well, I mailed this one lady until she called me and said, stop mailing me. Obviously you become annoying. I wouldn't necessarily just, I would do it at minimum 2 to 3 times. But you might want to change that marketing. Maybe use this postcard one time and use a different postcard, then send a letter, change it with a postcard. And then what you could do, this would be a really good tip for you guys. And I know you need to write this one down. What you could do, so those of the people that have already left are going to miss this one. But if you're having a hard time getting somebody to respond with a direct mail piece, do a more personalized letter. Go down to the post office, get a priority envelope, stick it in there, seal it, and mail it to them. I even have a student in Houston that actually puts Post-it notes on the door. I wouldn't necessarily be cautious with stuff like that, but.
Okay, how current is the information in REI Pro from Carlos? Carlos, we update the information Monday through Friday, every day of the week except for Saturday and Sunday. And as far as how current is the information, a lot of that may depend on your tax assessor when they release the information. It really depends on, it could be county specific. I've seen where there was a closing 3 days ago and we've already got it in REI Pro. And then I've seen some counties, if they're rural, might take 30 days for that sale transaction to be uploaded to us. So a lot of that depends, but we are updating our software every single day. And that from the pre-foreclosures, everything that's moving around, auctions, every day, Monday through Friday. Clifton, does REI Pro work for properties in Canada?
No, I wish it did. I don't even know if anybody that actually records the data there. No, you could live in Canada, invest in the U.S. though.
Yeah,
that would be the way to do it. And we have a lot of people from Canada that actually do use our REI Pro just for that.
We haven't really researched, can we pull this data in Canada? But hey, you never know. We just might. Okay, let's see. Coming in from Larry, with the pre-foreclosure leads, can you use a double close with dealing with an REO? And when using the buyer's list on REI Pro, how can I print the list?
Yeah, I mean, yes, you can do a double close with the REO. You need to have what's called one-day funding. So you need to fund the deal and then turn around and close the deal all at the same time, which would be a double close technically. Print the buyer's list from the buyer screen, I guess. Now what you can do is you can actually export that list, your buyer's list from here, and you can always filter these buyer types out too. So just filter in there, there's an action, you can select all, you can export it and then print them out.
Yeah, that might be your quickest way, depending on what format you want it in. Coming in from Sam, do you provide contract samples for all cases?
No, we work so many strategies and contracts. We're eventually going to start putting in some forms and some general contracts. Let me say that. We always advise you, we're not attorneys. You need to go to your local attorney for any kind of contracts. But we will be putting some in the tools section, as well as many other forms and stuff that we do use, so you guys have access to that. We can only do so much, but.
All right, coming in from Kristen. Sorry, I missed the part where it was mentioned about the pricing of REI Pro and if it's linked to REPP software.
I'm not sure what REPP software is. Bo and myself own the company 100%. We're not affiliated with anybody. Nope. As far as the price, you get 30 days free trial, then it's $109 per month thereafter. There is, if you want to buy a quarterly, it's a little bit cheaper to do that. Either way, you still get 30 days for free, and we unlock everything, guys. I see so many, the problem with the software is that they never tell you what to do with the information they give you. And that's why our whole program is totally based on this. And this is something that is just really taken the nation by storm now. And we're really building our users now with this, and just hearing so many compliments from you guys. And, but software is also one of those things that, well, can it do this? Can it do that? Those are things that we're always working on to improve the value. So you guys, but really we have everything and more to find and close the deal here.
Oh yeah. Coming in from Sam, do you provide contacts of closing companies?
No, we don't actually do that part. It's, if you simply Google it, you can find, these are just all over the place. Either a title company, or for a lot of people would be a real estate attorney. I typically like to go through an attorney that does closings personally.
That's actually one of the next questions from Keith. Do you typically use a real estate attorney, or are there companies that specialize in closing these types of transactions? Any attorney,
Assigning is not a big deal. Where you're going to find where I like to use an attorney, some title companies won't do what's called a double closing, which we're going to talk about in part 3, actually, when we actually close the deal. That's why I like going through attorneys, because they understand the law and they get it. Title companies, you have to look at a typical title company. 99% of the transactions, there's a bank, there's a real estate agent, there's a buyer and a seller. It's a standard transaction. Sometimes when you bring maybe a creative, they're going to be, I'm not sure we can do that. And that's where I like to go. But wholesaling is very common today as far as assigning properties. You're not going to have a hard time finding them. If you do, obviously, I recommend anyways to go to an attorney that does closings.
All right. What is a good lowest monthly direct mail marketing package? Coming in from Keith. I'm not sure I quite understand the question.
Yeah, we have what's called Lead Pro, which is a standalone product that just does lead generation and direct mail.
Right.
That's all it does. And it's not 109 because you don't get the complete CRM software and the executable steps and the phones and all that information. But if you're just looking for like lead generation, if you want, can you type that address in there?
Yeah, I'll send it.
Yep. If you're just looking for just leads and direct mail, that's where you would want to go to just Lead Pro, which we do provide that separately outside of REI Pro. And what you'll find is you'll probably be back in REI Pro.
Yep. But if you are in REI Pro, Lead Pro is automatically included at no extra charge.
Right.
Next question, is there a replay of this?
Yeah, we're going to house this particular replay. All of our training sessions, some are public, some are not, will be inside of REI Pro. All of our training sessions that we do will be underneath our education center here. These are all minimum an hour training, great information. We want to keep our users 10 steps ahead of everyone else out there. That's our point. We want our users to be the best out there, have the best information, and so forth.
All right. Next question coming in from Carlos. When you say students, are these people that are on the REI Pro software, or is there a special group that is labeled as students?
That would be a special group. That's my personal coaching students. I just say my students because I would have to say Rex, or I'd have to say Rachel, or I'd have to say Bridget, I would have to say Julie, I could go on and on. Those are personal coaching students that want to learn the business with my personal help. But all of our users are like a big family. You know, that's what I love about our users with REI Pro. It's like one big family. We're going to work together and we're going to improve. We're going to do whatever it takes for you guys, our users of REI Pro, to have the edge over everybody else, period. Hands down. Coaching students, different. Is that all we have, or?
Might be one more coming in.
Let's see here. Yeah, go ahead. Last question.
Yeah, this one's coming in from Delta. Sorry, we're trying to actually understand the question. I've been in since February. Do you find these homeowners just shopping for the highest bids? I've sent hundreds of letters of intent, LOIs, I assume, and that is what I'm running into.
Yeah, here's what's going to fix that. You're probably sending one offer. You need to be sending, Delta, multiple offers. I may send a cash offer for maybe a wholesaling or a rehab. I'll also send a lease option offer, and I'll also send a seller finance. When you can create multiple offers, your acceptance ratio is going to go up, period. So that's a really big deal. And that's where, I hate when people go in, they learn this stuff, and then they only do it one way. I want you to learn this way too. And I want you to learn the other. We did a lease option 3-part last time. I want you to eventually gain the knowledge of multiple strategies and work one or two getting started. Wholesaling is going to be the easiest to get started, but ultimately understanding multiple strategies, you're going to be able to create multiple offers, which we do inside of REI Pro. Actually, REI Pro creates multiple offers for you, which we're going to talk about in the next session. So I believe that's all we have. It's been awesome. We really do appreciate you guys attending. Those of you that are not in REI Pro, go check it out now, 30-day free trial. And we look forward to seeing you guys on part 2. So be sure that you get registered on your dashboard. Just go to the dashboard, scroll down to the bottom, and you can register for part 2 and part 3, because part 2 is really big, is understanding comparable sales. Which ones do we use? Which ones don't we use? How do we make an offer? And I'm actually going to fill out a real contract for you guys on the presentation as well, and understanding what needs to go in your contract versus not. Then we move into step 6 for the next one, which is going to be pretty awesome. So get registered for that, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody, for attending.